friends, we're back again. So we're continuing Roscoe Riley, Never Glue Your Friends to Chairs. So we just read chapters 6 and 7, and as we were coming in, they were practicing for their show. And the principal has just come in, and I'm thinking that Roscoe is probably going to get in trouble, or possibly his whole class. So let's see how this shakes down. All right, chapter 8, How to Speak Teacher. Children, said Mr. Goosegarden, I certainly hope you won't disappoint your parents with this kind of rowdy behavior at open house. Coco raised her hand. Roscoe started it, Mr. Goosegarden, she said. He made walrus teeth. Coco was not really being helpful, if you ask me. I'm sure Roscoe will remember that walrus teeth are not appropriate, said Mr. Goosegarden, and that chairs are for sitting, not for sword fighting. He winked at me. Mr. Goosegarden and I go way back. Sorry, I said. I didn't know there was a no walrus teeth rule. That's okay, Roscoe, said Mr. Goosegarden. I know you'll come through this afternoon. He smiled at Miss Diz. Don't worry, he said. The first year of teaching is always the hardest. Mr. Goosegarden waved goodbye. The door closed behind him. Miss Diz sighed. She looked at the clock on the wall. It's way past time for reading groups. Let's take off the head bobbles, the antennae. Just do your best that you can this afternoon. She sort of sounded worn out. I felt bad about the walrus teeth incident. Like I said before, kids have so many rules to remember. There's a gazillion things we are not supposed to do. Who knew making walrus teeth was one of them? After we put away the baubles and sticks, we sat at tables for reading groups. Reading is fun, but it can be very hard work. You can get pretty thirsty trying to make those letters into words. After I read 4 whole sentences, I went to the water fountain to get a drink. The fountain is next to the art cupboard. Just then, Mr. Frisbee came in. He is a kindergarten teacher. Can I borrow some chalk? Mr. Frisbee asked Miss Diz. Sure, said Miss Diz. She opened the art cupboard. I could see the art supplies I brought, including Drusilla's head and the don't you dare glue. Miss Diz gave Mr. Frisbee a box of fresh chalk. Here you go, she said. How was the dress rehearsal? Mr. Frisbee asked. Miss Diz whispered something I couldn't hear, and then she laughed. At this rate, I'll be looking for another job soon. They both laughed, but I was pretty sure it was worried laughing. Maybe you were wondering how I could tell. After all, teachers can be confusing, but not as confusing as parents. But still, sometimes teachers have trouble expressing themselves. Fortunately, I have served in preschool and kindergarten already. Also, Mommy and Me music and Jimborama and my clay class, Pots for Tots. So I'm happy to explain teacher stuff to you. Here is my goof-proof Roscoe Riley teacher translator. Oh, I told you not to feed the goldfish glitter. Really? Ah! Take the Play-Doh out of your ear this instant. I quit, just like the kindergarten teacher. It's pretty easy to understand teachers once you get the hang of it. I'm still working out on figuring out how to speak parent though. I thought about what Miss Diz had said to Mr. Frisbee. At this rate, I'll be looking for another job soon. What if Mr. Goosegarden fired Miss Diz just because of our rowdy behavior? That would be awful. After all, Miss Diz is a great teacher, even if she is just a beginner. Then I thought about my kindergarten teacher from last year, the one who changed jobs after I painted the hamsters. She works at an office now with no kids in it and no green hamsters. How boring is that? I could not let such a horrible thing happen to Miss Diz. Chapter 9, Roscoe to the rescue. Right after recess, it was time to get ready for the open house. Miss Diz and the room mother set out the chocolate chip cookies and cakes and pies on a big table, and napkins and juice. Those cookies looked delicious. But I was too worried about the bee song to think about those delicious, chewy, chocolatey, melt in my mouth cookies. Well, almost too worried. Miss Diz arranged the chairs. Then she set out the sticks and the head bobbles on the counter. Your parents will be here in just a few minutes, children, she said. Check all the activity centers to make sure everything is nice and clean. Miss Diz, called one of the room mothers, do you have any name tags? I think I have some in the art cupboard, said Miss Diz. She opened the cupboard doors. Nope, no name tags. Let me see if they have any in the office. Children, I'll be right back. Roscoe, why don't you pass out the antennae? Dewan, you hand out the sticks. But no funny business. The rest of you finish cleaning up. Miss Diz rushed out the door. The art cupboard doors are still open. I could see the don't you dare glue I brought. And just then, I had a super mega gonzo idea. I went over to the cupboard. All the kids were busy cleaning up blocks and puzzle pieces and crayons. The room mothers were not paying any attention to me either. They were busy mopping up a juice spill. It was caused by a flying Lego. I picked up one of the head bobbles on the counter. I reached for the don't you dare glue. I tried to read the label. It took a lot of work to read it. Bonds instantly and permanently, it said. Glues wood, metal, glass, and paper. The label did not mention head bobbles. I opened the glue, I put a little on the headband, and I popped those bobbles on my head. This is not going to be good. I waited a few seconds, and then I wiggled my head. The bobbles stayed on, nice and tight, just like real bee bobbles. Perfect. I put a few drops of glue on all the other bobbles. Then I slipped the tube of glue into my pocket. One by one, I passed out baubles to all the kids. Hassan tried on his baubles. He didn't notice the little drops of don't you dare glue. Hey, said Hassan. He shook his head. Weird. My baubles are staying on. So are mine, Maria said. Miss Diz must have fixed them. I handed baubles to Gus and Dewan. They were playing swords again. Gus, I said, no swords. This open house has got to be perfect. They're not swords, he said. They're lightsabers. Here, I said. I put the baubles on his head and gave the last pair to Dewan, who put them on. Hey, said Dewan, my baubles aren't bobbling. Mission accomplished, I thought. Roscoe to the rescue. Chapter 10, Behaving. Miss Diz came back with the name tags. She was not happy to see Gus and Dewan playing swords again. Drummers, settle down, she said firmly. My baubles are staying on, Miss Diz, Maria reported. And so are mine, said Coco. Miss Diz looked surprised. She said. That's good news. Just then, Coco's mom and dad arrived. Smile, everyone, said her mom. We're recording. Coco's dad was holding a silver camcorder. All the other moms and dads began to come in. They smiled and talked and waved and shook hands. While Miss Diz was busy saying hello, Gus pointed his stick at Dewan. I am Zorro, he yelled. I am Darth Vader, cried Dewan. Duel to the death, Gus shouted. They were going to have a hard time sitting there for a long time through the bee song, I thought. And then I had another super mega gonzo idea. Ooh, I think I know what he's gonna do. Sometimes my brain just amazes me. I went over to the drummer chairs. I looked around. Nobody was watching me, and Mom and Dad weren't there yet. I pulled out the Don't You Dare glue, and I put a few drops on each chair seat. I smiled a proud smile. The bee song would go perfectly, and Miss Diz would keep her job. So there he is. He put a little drop of that glue on top of the chair so everybody would stay seated and nobody would get in trouble. And she'd keep her job, and it was all because of me. Roscoe, hello, Pumpkin, someone called. It was Mom. She was carrying her banana avocado raisin cream pie. It's not really okay for moms to call you Pumpkin in front of your classmates, but that's all right. Sometimes parents forget to follow the rules too. My dad was right behind her. He was carrying Hazel. Hazel only goes to preschool half a day. Little kids have it so easy. What's on Roscoe's head, Mommy? Hazel asked. Those are my bee baubles, I said proudly. I wiggled my head and they stayed put. I am a genius, I thought. Miss Diz clapped her hands and put a finger to her lips. Parents, please find a seat. We have an exciting performance planned for you. All the moms and dads sat down. They had to squish into our little itty-bitty chairs. They looked pretty silly. I was glad no one tried to sit in the chairs I'd glued. Places, everyone, said Miss Diz. The bees lined up, the bee drummers sat down, right on the glue. All except Gus. There's something on my chair, he complained. Probably your own nose, you goof, said Coco. So there are the parents sitting in the tiny chairs, and there's Roscoe and his friends glued to the chairs. Gus, said Ms. Diz, please sit down. Gus sat down with a plop. As you know, we've been studying insects these past few weeks, Ms. Diz said. Suddenly, Mr. Goosegarden appeared in the doorway. Hello, parents, he said. I'm just passing through. Didn't want to miss hearing my favorite beehive perform. Mr. Garden looked up at all of us. One eyebrow went up, just like my dad's. I wonder if there's a school where they learn that eyebrow move. Miss Diz made a noise in her throat. Her face was a little pink. Or maybe green. I think that's called stage fright. As I was saying, she said, we've been learning about insects, especially bees, and now we have a song we'd like to perform for you. Hazel made a buzzing sound. All the parents laughed. Everyone thinks she's adorable. It's disgusting. All right, children, said Miss Diz. She made her voice a whisper. We are going to do it just right this time. She looked over at the drummers. Even Gus was sitting perfectly still. Not that he had a choice. 1, 2, 3. We all sang loud and clear and pounded nice and steady. When we were done, the parents cheered and clapped. Someone even whistled. Bravo, a dad yelled. Coco's mom wiped tears from her eyes. Can we have cookies now? Asked Hazel. Miss Diz looked very happy, and she wasn't pink or green anymore. Mr. Goosegarden grinned. Children, I knew you'd come through. That was just perfect. I must say that I love the way you behaved. Everyone laughed at his bee joke because you have to laugh when it's the principal. Mr. Goosegarden gave Ms. Diz a thumbs up sign. That means good job. Also, you won't have to go work in a boring hamster-free office. He gave us all a big wave and then he left. I couldn't stop smiling. Everything had gone perfectly thanks to me. And a little bit of don't you dare glue. All right, everybody, said Miss Diz, hand me your antenna and your sticks and line up with your parents for dessert. All the kids clapped and cheered, and then everybody pulled off their baubles. At least everybody tried to pull off their baubles. Ouch, Emma cried. The baubles won't come off, Dewan shouted. My hairs are pulling, Gus yelled. My baubles are stuck, Coco screamed. Everybody looked at me. Their faces were kind of surprised, then mad, then really mad. It seemed like maybe a good time for me to go to the bathroom, but when I tried to get up, my chair came with me. Oh, wow. Okay, boys and girls, so that's the end of chapter 10. I'm hoping that you'll come back and we'll figure out what happens. Now, everybody knows that they are stuck. The stuff is stuck to their heads. This is really scary. I'm not sure what's gonna happen. Anyways, all right, so come back next time and we'll finish up with chapters 11 through 13. Okay.